If something's important, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the way it usually goes. It's like, there's always an answer. And it's usually not very easy or right in front of your face. And it's not the honest answer, but there's always an answer to the problem. Listen, if someone wins a fight, we got to go. We sit down and kind of have a debrief of what can we do better? What did we do bad? What can we do better? Where do we fail? Where do we succeed? How do we do it better next time? Whether we had a 10-second knockout or whatever it was, there is a separation that you need to have of like, hey, it's coach time.
There's
it's
a
fighter
boundary,
time.
yep.
You know, and boundaries, like setting up the culture, setting up the boundaries, setting up the non-negotiables, setting up, and then towing the line. Once you start to go, okay, we got it. Someone's going to pass you by. Someone's going to do it better. You're going to kind of downgrade yourself. I always look to learn, to look to who's doing what better as a coach, who's doing what better as a gym, as a business, you know, and so that's the mentality. There's people that are always better than you. And if you can get them to play along and be part of the system and come in and say, hey, here's how we do things, and they do it and they're going to make the team better, then it would be so stupid, or it would be detrimental to me and my team if I don't allow those people, let them get better. Because if you're always constantly doing this and you're focused on this and holding on so tight, it's hard to get to here. You know, you're just like, I gotta do.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of delegate. If you're a fighter, you need to win fights. You want to get chicks? Great. Chicks like winners. You want to make money? You got to win fights.
Sure.
That's how you make money. You want to get popular on Instagram? Win fights. That's people are going to want to watch you and they're going to follow you.
All right, coach. You're a world-class coach, but what's even more impressive is how you were able to sustain the, I guess, MMA coaching business for so long, even when MMA wasn't popular back then. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me how you were able to sustain that? Like how you were able to hold up the business and just have that business acumen?
It really takes just like in fighting, kind of a never die attitude, you know, like never say die, never quit. And just like in fighting, you just have to keep pushing even when things are good, bad, ugly, and different. I've always had the mindset of if I want to do something and I see it and I can visualize it in my head of me doing it, I'm going to do it. I don't exactly know how. I don't always know. Most of the time, 95% of the time I start to do something, I'm just kind of like, I have no idea how I'm going to get this done, but I'm going to do it. And as you start, you know, what freezes a lot of people in life and fighting in general and anything is just the fear factor of failure, the fear factor of, oh, well, what if, and this and that. And I don't, man, it's just so big. How much money it is. I don't know if I can do it. What if it fails? What if, and that freezes you, you know, and that's the one thing that like one of my better attributes is I never ever have that thought process go through my mind.
Did you cultivate that or was it just in you? You were just like,
kind of cultivated as my first job. I think I was 15 years old. I went to, I started working at a grocery store right down the street. Actually, there was a Vaughn's off of, just down the street from here. Mm-hmm. And I was pushing carts and I think it was my first week or two. And I was just like, you know what? This fucking sucks. I don't want to do this. Yeah. I don't want, and like having somebody yell at me, telling me what to do. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to work for myself. And it was my very first job. My dad was always successful in, you know, having his own business. He was very good at starting his own business.
What did he do?
He was a pool business. He was in the pool business for 50 years. So he always had a pool company, whether it was selling building pools, decks, whatever it was. He was in the pool business forever. He was really good at starting things and getting it going. He just wasn't good at maintaining. So I had kind of learned through that, you know, I was like, okay, I got to do this a little bit different. But anyways, I remember that day in working that shitty ass job where I was like, you know what? I'm going to work for myself. I don't know what I'm going to do. MMA wasn't even a thing yet. I think I had seen like the first UFC by that time, but I wasn't like, you know, popping off like it is now. So I just always set in my mind that day that I'm going to have my own business and I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to work for myself. No idea what that was, but I saw that vision in my head. Fast forward a few years later, when growing up in Vegas, there wasn't a whole lot to do back when I was a kid except get in trouble. And so that's what I did a lot of times. And that kind of led me to moving. I moved to Arizona for a little bit, and that's when I first started training out there. I went out at 17 years old. You could actually bounce in the clubs out there at 18. So
Interesting. Yeah.
I got into, and I started bouncing, and I got into like close quarter combat stuff, and I immediately went into like Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, and I just fell in love with it. And I'd always been a huge fan of, UFC. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a WWE, WWF wrestler back then. I was like, but realized that I'm not 6'7" and 350 pounds. So I kind of killed that dream. But as soon as the second, I think it was like the first day I started training, about 17 years old, I fell in love with it. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I think I want to fight. I think I want to do this. And the more training came along, I just wanted more and more and more. And, a few years went by and I started really wanting to, I started fighting out there in some small regional shows, and Vegas started to kind of pop off a little bit. There was the UFC was here, it wasn't nowhere near what it was.
Like the fight city capital.
Back when I was a gym, there was a Las Vegas Combat Club here in town, and JSEC Jiu-Jitsu, basically were the two gyms in town, and so Frank Mir was coming up and Phil Baroni, and they were out of the Combat Club. And so my time had kind of ended in Arizona, and I came back here, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to come back and I'm going to take a run at this fighting thing. So I moved back to Vegas and went to the Combat Club, met my coach, Ricardo Perez back in the day. And I think at that time, like Frank, when I first got to the gym, Frank was just about to have his first UFC fight. And I went in there, and the first day I went in there, I remember Phil Baroni got tapped out, and I remember him flipping out and throwing a chair through the wall, breaking a window and storming out into the street and screaming. And I was like, oh, okay.
Who, you or Phil?
No, Phil Baroni.
Phil Baroni.
Yeah. Okay. And I remember that was my first day in the gym, and I was like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting.
He tapped out because he
got tapped on the mat and just freaked out, and then like punched a hole in the wall, threw a chair through the wall, stormed out in the street screaming. And I was like, oh, okay, this is.
I thought because he got hurt.
No, that was just him. He was one of those crazy guys. But I fell in love with the place, started training, and fast forward a few years, had a few fights. Really, my first love was jiu-jitsu. I really loved competing in jiu-jitsu, and most of my wins and fights were jiu-jitsu. And early on, I just kind of realized, I was like, I never had that drive to want to be a champion, or, I was like, oh, I want to be this. Early on, really, really early, I realized, I was like, I think I want to do this as a business. I think I want to coach. I think I want to. I started coaching jiu-jitsu tournaments a lot, and I just really kind of fell into it and loved it. And one thing led to another. A few years there, I got into a car accident. Somebody T-boned me, and I got a small settlement. And I remember, like, it wasn't a lot. It was like 30 grand or something like that.
I mean, at that time,
yeah,
30 grand.
And I was young. I was like, 23 years old or something. I was just like, what am I going to do with this money? And at the time back then, all the gyms, everything was in kind of the hood. It was either warehouse district, or it was really it wasn't a family friendly, kid friendly.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, someplace that you really wanted. They weren't easy to get to. It was just a gnarly spot, to go to. So I had the idea I went to my coach and I said, hey, what if I were to invest this money? Do you think we could maybe open another location in a nice part of town where we could, actually build this up to be something, build this up to be a business and like something bigger? Because at the time, like the buzz with the UFC was starting to kind of happen. I mean, this is way back. This is like UFC 30 days, UFC 20, whatever. And I just saw the foresight of what I thought MMA was going to do, and I just knew I loved it so much. I was like, man, I want to do this. I want to do this as a career. This is my thing. This is the thing I've been waiting for me to, fall in love with. And he said, yeah. And you know what? I was thinking, I was still fighting. I'm like, man, I'm going to open this gym. We found a spot, a little 2,000 square foot spot, up on like Durango and Durango and DI,
yep.
Right across the street from the park. And, we went in and demoed it ourselves and turned it into just this. It was just this little tiny spot. And I was like, man, I'm going to train all day. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have these, this, that, and the other. And it's going to be cool. What I didn't realize is I didn't have a business sense at that time. So we opened the gym and it started doing well. Put the instructors in there. And then my partners, my coach decided he was going to leave town and move. And so it all ended up on me. And then I had to really realize real quick that no gym, MMA, whatever, if you don't run any business like a business, you're going to have problems. So immediately, like within first 4 months, it was like, oh shit, this is going to shut down. This isn't going to be a thing, uh-oh. And, again, going back to the never say die attitude, I just had to figure it out. I had to figure it out. And I found the right people to come in, kind of replace, take it and sustain it, to where we got over the hump. And then, at that point in time, Forrest Griffin was at our gym, and he had just come off The Ultimate Fighter, and he was actually living in my dining room underneath my table. That was his bedroom for the first year that he was in Vegas. And so, I had him, and I used to just follow him around everywhere he went.
And he was already fighting.
He'd already won The Ultimate Fighter.
Right. With Stephen Bonner.
Yeah. And so he was here, and then that brought all of the Ultimate Fighter guys kind of here. And so we had a good buzz on that. And like I said, I used to just go wherever he would go. I would just tag along if I could, meet people, shake hands. And he was doing a photo shoot for Zions, which was the main sponsor for UFC back in the day. And lo and behold, the owner of Zions, I was doing, I was there, started talking to him. He's like, yeah, my son trains at your gym. I was like, really? That's cool. And then he's like, yeah, if you ever want to do something, let me know. And I was like, I want to do something.
Yep.
And so I kind of fell into that position, and they became the name sponsor for the gym, and they partnered with me. And that was a whole kind of crazy thing, but that kind of got my foot in the door with the sponsorships. And over the years, like the gym in the first, 10 years had changed names multiple times. Basically, whatever I could get to give me some money, or they put their name on the building and give me some free stuff. That's what I was doing. And so, always just making relationships, building, on, hey, I met this guy, and then go to whatever and be wherever he was. And then I'd meet more people, and just always just kind of networking, networking as much in that era, in that scene of MMA at that time that I could. And it was still very, small, tight knit, community. So you kind of knew everybody pretty quick. And so it just turned out that like sponsorships fell in at the right time. I became friends with the right people. I said, just showing up to every event, to every photo shoot, to everything I could with whoever I could. And it just fell in the right spot too.
And that was intentional? You were like,
always.
Just didn't follow Forrest because he was just your buddy. You were like,
I would want to go if he would go, and, obviously I'd help him out or whatever. It's just, like one of my best friends, and I would go and hang out with him while he's, he hated doing most of the shit, but he would do it all. He was a company guy. So that was really good because people loved working with Forrest. So I would, like I said, try to go and meet every single person I could. And that's how like pretty much a lot of that started, just meeting people through him, being in the right place at the right time. And just, like I said, putting myself out there as much. And then, just building the right group, and, the MMA scene just started to kind of blow up at that point in time, and people were coming to Vegas to train, and, finding the right coaches, doing the right things. And it just, being with Forrest a lot, obviously in the hype that he had, being the guy that he was, brought a lot of attention to us.
Especially after that fight with Stephen Bonner.
100%. And I was able to go out and get some good coaches and get some people and bring the right people in. And it just kind of snowballed, but I will tell you this, like, again, gym, whatever your kind of business you're in, if you don't run it like a business and have a business ethic and business structure and infrastructure, man, there was so many times. I mean, we survived the housing collapse. So many crazy things. But the one thing that kind of always stayed through, even through the bad times, people still wanted to train. It was one of those things. I was just always waiting for the bottom to kind of fall out of, like, oh my God, when are all these people going to not, they're not going to come. But everybody, it stayed enough that people were always signing up, members, fighters were coming, and we started building the fight team. And it just, like I said, slowly kept going and going and going. And at this time, honestly, when I owned the gym, there's a point in time where I had 2 or 3 other jobs. I was working.
Sure.
I was working other jobs. I was bouncing. I was doing privates all day. I mean, I was working for my dad. I was doing all kinds of shit just to pay the bills, And because even by that point, the gym wasn't even, sustaining itself. And then a few years in, there was good years where it was, covering itself. But then I would have to go find a new partner and partner up with somebody and do some things where like, and sometimes even I had to get into bed with some guys where I knew I was like, man, this is going to be terrible. Even the Zions, to be honest. Like I had heard that the dude he might still be in prison. I don't know.
A little bit of like nut job.
He wasn't even nut job. He was just a blue collar criminal. He ended up, stealing money from me and almost bankrupt me. I survived that. He was kiting checks and writing checks and bad checks. And I ended up, when I took over Zions, fully, I was like $150,000 in bad checks written in my name, in the gym's name.
Wow.
And, so I was on the hook for a lot of that, survived that, got out of that, and, then found the next group of partners. And each time partners got a little bit better.
Because you learned along the way.
Yeah, learned a lot more, learned what to look for.
Yeah.
Like I said, there was a lot of times and a lot of guys over the years where I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do business with this guy. But then I won't do business, and it'll, eventually when this situation ends, I'll be in a better spot. So just literally clawing tooth and nail, just never, multiple times. I mean, I had a lot of people that were just like, hey, we're closing the doors. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. Just give me the business and take a hike, and I'll, I'm not quitting.
Man, yeah.
And so, but there were some scary times, but it literally just, I never had the thought in my mind that I'm not going to do this. I won't make it work. I'll find a way to make it work. And that's kind of the thing of my motto in life is no matter what, if something's important, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it usually goes. It's like, there's always an answer. And it's usually not very easy or right in front of your face. And it's not the funnest answer, but there's always an answer to the problem.
That's straight like an entrepreneur masterclass right there. When I was watching a podcast with that when you say never say die attitude, that intrigues me a lot because when you get into just business, even now in general, 99.999% of people will quit, especially when you say you've gotten into like bad, business deals and partnerships and stuff like that. It's almost like, okay, I got to back up and reserve whatever else I have. That's why that intrigues me besides you being like a world-class MMA coach. And like I said, I'm doing the same things, and the hardships of it, just like the uncertainty is like, oh fuck, like I don't know how I'm gonna make money.
And that's the thing is you don't need to know necessarily. A lot of people, like I said, they have these great dreams and these grandiose ideas of, hey, I'm gonna do this. I don't know, but I don't know how, so I don't know how to start. I don't know how to implement this. I don't have this. I don't have that. The biggest thing is just start. For you started. You've got something going. There will be a time and a place and a point where you go, holy shit, this is what I've always waited for. Something will come in if you keep doing it and you're doing it good and you're doing it the right way. If you're doing bad business, you're going to get screwed and you're going to be done. And that's just anything. Like I've had a gym for 22 years and there's a lot of shitheads out there that'll be like, oh, F that guy. And those are people that I've fired or people that I've cut business with. And you can go back and look at any of them and they ain't doing that good.
Right.
I don't do bad business. I don't screw people over, but I will not continue to do business with people that do bad business or people that are shitheads. That's just the thing for me. And once you burn me once, I'm done.
Right.
I'm done. And so, like there is not a single person that can come back and say, well, he stole money there's people that can say it, but go ahead and prove it. Go ahead and show me how that happened.
The action,
Show me where there's always haters, and the higher up you get into this thing, and I hate the word haters, but it's true. Like the more success I've had, the more people I've had shit on me for this or for that. And it's like, okay, well, where are you at? And you're yelling for me down there. Okay, I got it. You just go ahead and stay down there. It's just a mentality of, like I said, you have to just keep your nose to the grindstone. Do not screw people over in business, because especially in this town and in the community that we're in, it's a small community.
Yep.
Screw people over, you're going to get, it's going to come back to bite you.
Would you say, because I feel like your gym with the brand, with the clothing, and you headed towards that and you work towards that. Would you say reputation is a big part of the business? Like, how people perceive. Because Syndicate MMA is a brand. You walk in there, there's a clothing brand. People want to be a part of it. They want to be part of the tribe. It's like, it's a cool thing almost. When I know I do. When I go to LVAC, people come up to me when I'm wearing the Syndicate shirt. They're like, hey, you train? I'm like, yeah, you feel cool.
Sure.
All that stuff. Would you say that's a big part of like the reputation part is a big part of your success, or did you just kind of come along and were you like, okay, I'm just going to do business the right way, and the reputation comes with that? What is the biggest aspect?
Again, like I said, you learn as you go. So I didn't really know what the biggest or best thing to do was. And I've figured out a lot. And I'll tell you this, even the biggest growth factor for me in my life and personal and business and coaching have probably happened in the last couple of years. I'm 22 years deep into business and I'm still figuring it out. And I expect more. I always expect more from myself. I'm never, I'm content and happy. Like if I never moved past where I was today, I've got it pretty good. I've got a good life, I've got great fighters, a great wife, great family, great business, great things happening. But I want more. And not to the point where I'm not happy, not because I want, but I want to leave a mark on the sport, on my family, on my team. And so it all kind of trickles down. I want to do something bigger than myself, something bigger, for the team. So it comes down to building the culture of, and that's something that I didn't do at the beginning that I really screwed up with, is not building the culture that I wanted, that I saw to be fit. So I would kind of cater to certain people and cater to, hey, it's okay to be this or do that or say this or, blah, 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 or act that way. And that really hurt me later on. And so the last couple of years, my biggest number one thing is culture. The greatest compliment that I get on a weekly, daily basis, my wife will tell you the same. Yep. People come to the gym, they're like, man, I love the vibe in here. I love this place. Like I love it. It's great. It's awesome. There's no, it's just cool, man. I want to be here. I want people to want to be at the gym, whether it's fighters, the average Joe, the kids, the family. Like building that culture has been something that I focused on the last couple of years, and building a team around me. The coaches we have now at the gym, the assistant coach for the MMA team, the coaches, the jiu-jitsu coaches, everybody there are people that I genuinely want to be around and that I like.
Sure.
And we have all that vibe going together, and we're constantly meeting every week to do it better. Hey, what do we do better this week? How can we make these fighters better? How can we make the classes better?
And you have those meetings in your conference to talk about all that stuff
every week.
Like, okay,
every week.
To communicate with
Just
the coaches.
Communication. There's weeks where we have a weekly coaches meeting, and I have my guys come in, and there's a lot of times where it's like, we usually have a ton of fights going on, so it's always like, hey, how's this camp going? What do you think about this? I saw this. Or any problem that can be thought or talked about, we handle. But sometimes it's just the fact of getting together with the guys and just having that, like, bullshit we'll get in there and just shit on each other for 10 minutes.
That seems, that's what I would expect.
It's always starts out like that with a good laugh, ends with a good laugh. Mm-hmm. And those are the things you expect, and you have to, said it takes time to build that, but that's something that we're doing at the gym that I think is different than any other gym. We are a legit team. There's a lot of super gyms and mega gyms and people where there's like, there's some really great gyms out there and great coaches. And there's some facilities that, where it's a good gym and there's 10 different teams inside that gym and they're just operating all as their own entities.
Right.
And that's okay. But that's not what I wanted. Like, we build together, and it's crazy. I sit back every night with my wife and I'm just like, man, I'm out here in, Mexico City, and I've got 5 other coaches doing this and doing that. And it's all working. Yeah. It's flowing together, and it's working great. So, the last couple of years have been really amazing, but it's just, that was something that I physically, mentally put my mind to work of saying, hey, how do I change this? Reading books. What can I do better? I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday about this. I went to all the coaches that I know that are doing it better, that are doing it on a higher level, or that were, and hey, how do you guys do? What do you do? Because I kind of came up on my own. Mm-hmm. Like I came up through some great coaches and got to see some great things and worked with some fantastic people, but I was never under one person for, a long time. And that's kind of the Vegas culture. And that's one thing I wanted to change out here. Everybody's just nomadic and moving and groove their own thing, and they get lost in the shuffle.
Yep.
And they're just like, that's something I don't care for that. So I wanted to build a thing where someone could come and we'll take care of it all for you. We'll handle your top to bottom. Yeah. But I went and just got as much knowledge as I could, read 20 books probably in the last 2 years of just how to do things better, and just got hooked on knowledge and writing things down, and just, man, it just came back. I said, biggest thing was culture. How do you cultivate what you want?
Interesting. Speaking of books, Coach, I'm a big book reader as well. And especially, from the coaches. I like to pick people's brain as well. Everything that you're telling me, I'm so motivated because that's literally the path that I'm following. All I do is literally listen to podcasts and content that it's like, how does they do things? I'm aware of the whereabouts, how, the camera shots are and all that. I'm very aware of that. And with what books did you come up reading in order to do that? Was it self-development books? Were you developing yourself and then that just comes with the success that you have?
A little bit of everything. A couple really good ones I read. I really loved Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Yep.
Loved that one.
Yep.
There was a couple things that just stuck with me, and I just in my head of you have to have ownership, good, bad, and different, no matter what. And this is something I preach to my all the coaches at my gym. Like, listen, if someone wins a fight, we got to go. We sit down and kind of have a debrief of what can we do better, what did we do bad, what can we do better, where did we fail, where did we succeed, how do we do it better next time. Whether we had a 10-second knockout or whatever it was. I always want to look, if someone lost, where did we, I always tell my coaches, you need to be able to sit down and have a meeting with somebody, with a fighter, and have that, hey, this is where I think I failed and what I would do better for next time and where I think I did. What do you think? You've got to, once you start taking ownership, good, bad, and different and everything, it just changes the perspective of how you look at things.
Yeah.
And that was the first one that I read that I was like, really like, holy shit. There was the I think it was called The Coaching Culture. I have to get the exact one. It was a really awesome book on culture. I'll look it up here in a second, but there was amazing. I think it was The Coaching Culture. And that one was awesome for how to build. It was a basketball book, but how to build culture within the systems you want and how you do it. Phenomenal. And then one that everybody's pretty familiar. And I read all of Jocko's books. I've read a ton of different culture books. Those ones stuck out. Relentless from Tim Grover
Yep. Mm-hmm.
was awesome. Winning, his second book, was even more awesome.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I started with those books, and those were the first ones I started reading Relentless about a year before I got to Jocko's book, and I was like, and I just didn't feel the vibe. Like I was like, because it's kind of, there's like a negative connotation in some of the stuff of like, F everybody else, you do this.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't, I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that.
Like a David Goggins kind of.
And I kind of bailed on it real quick. And then I found, like I said, Jocko's book really hit me. And then I started getting into all his leadership books and, Extreme Ownership and all this stuff. And I was like, man. And then I went back a year later and read Relentless. And I was like, holy shit, it blew my mind. And then I hit Winning, and that one, to me, because I was already aware of what the stuff that he was talking about, Relentless, Winning was just like, oh my God, okay. And just, there's just key points in it. Not all of it's for you. Not all of it was for me, but I take everything out of a book and just be like, I don't obviously think everything everybody says is gold.
Sure.
I don't expect everybody to think, what I say is gold. I always tell guys, hey, if I can teach you something, if you like it, great. If not, we'll move on. We'll figure out something what's good for you. And that's kind of how I read books. But man, those four right there really kind of started shaping how I think. And then obviously a lot of podcasts, and I just got done with a book, the Scottish cat, actually, Gary John Bishop.
Okay.
I read a book called Unfuck
Yourself. Yeah, that's
and
right.
that was man, and that was that one. I'm on his books right now. So just even the aspects, it's funny because like things from your childhood, things from like you learned from your parents, or things that you weren't taught, it all plays into how you run your life and run your business. And when you're a leader of people, a leader of men, and you've got to make sure, like, man, I can tell you the last few years, I've fucked up some shit, like personal life. And once I started to realize that my personal life could affect other people's lives, and I watched it affect my team, watched it affect certain aspects of like, oh boy, I really need to get my shit together in areas. And I've always, like I said, been successful, moving, driven forward, but we've all got our own demons and our own things. But once I saw how things that I could do in my personal life would affect my professional life, and we're in a different business where it's like my professional life, if it affects a fighter's life or it affects that's no bueno.
Yep.
So I really, like I said, started taking a deep dive into other things. Like, okay, how do I fix these things? How do I stop being a jackass in certain situations, you know, whether it's my marriage or whether, you know, with my kid or whatever, like how I talk to people or whatever it is. And so I really started focusing on clearing those things up too. So I want my, like, you know, trying to funnel my whole life into just the right path, you know, and all those little things play big pieces.
Yeah. So you would say that between your personal life and business life, they're not two separate things. They coincide with each other.
Not with what we do. You know, my wife was a fighter.
Yep.
You know, just retired. Jojo, well, formerly Calderwood now. We got the Calder off and it's wood.
It's
you know, and she now runs my business. You know, she runs the front end of the gym and
sweetest girl I've ever met.
You know, she's amazing, but don't let it fool you. She's got
sure.
a mean streak.
She's kicked me in the chest. A couple times.
She's amazing, and I wouldn't, you know, be where I'm at if I wasn't able to lean on her so much. But you know, our life is fighting, literally. My son has grown up in the gym on the mat since he was, you know, a baby. Like everything we do intertwined. Everything I have is because of fighting. Same thing, you know, with Joe. Like, so to have, you know, a wife that understands, hey, I've got to be gone this week. You know, I'm going to miss some birthdays and miss some holidays. Do that, and she's still supportive of it. You know, like our life is intertwined. You know, our family, not just family at home, but I have a family in the gym. I have to treat it as such, and I can mess those people up if I don't do the right things, you know, and then that affects even differently. So it all flows together. I have had to learn over the years, you know, that like there needs to be a separation though of how you're involved with that family. You know, there's a lot of, I used to try to be just so friends and so whatever. And there is a separation that you need to have of like, hey, it's coach time.
There's
it's
a
fighter
boundary.
time.
Yep.
You know, and boundaries, you know, and that was all the, you know, the things that I said of like setting up the culture, setting up the boundaries, setting up the non-negotiables, setting up things that I want, and then towing the line. You know, that's always the hardest thing is like, you can get the ideas. A lot of people have ideas. A lot of people have good ideas, but it's just like getting it going and then towing the line of here's what I'm accepting. Here's what I'm not accepting. And that was a really hard thing for me. Like I said, I used to accept a lot more bullshit than I should have coming up because I came up as a fighter and I came up as a friend. And I came up as a training partner. And I used to let, you know, certain people kind of talk shit behind my back and I'm like, it's okay. It's just them, you know, they, you know, they're friends or it's okay. And then once I got to realizing, you know, it's not. And
it's not okay.
And I got rid of every single person that was what I kind of, you know, was a negative space in the gym, and dude, it just changed everything.
Yeah.
It really did, you know? And so it's just focusing on, again, what is it that I can do better on a daily basis to make my gym family, my home family, all of it work better.
It's amazing that you were able to cultivate that. And again, you had this sense of awareness to like figure that out. I mean, you know, and make the changes. So I'll segue into, before we move on to, you know, the dynamics of you coaching your wife when she was fighting. I wanted to talk about keeping up with the business. I mean, it's incredible. I've been there for 6 years. Even as Jerry and Shane were moving in, it's incredible how many people now go there. And again, being in this business space, that's how I look at things nowadays. And I'm like, this jiu-jitsu program has to be like the bread and butter of, you know, just how outside booking in. I'm like, the explosion of how many people have gone from when I was going alone, and there was already a lot of people going, is incredible. I mean, what is it about Jerry Shapiro and Shane Shapiro that you think and you know that has made that like big explosion of what I'm talking about people going to the gym and having the right culture, and then even the kids program, like it's incredible. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. You have 100 people that you literally probably had to expand the gym for because there's so many people going in there, and then people doing jujitsu in the cage, like because there's
no, it's awesome. You know, I've always kind of thought myself to have a good eye for talent, whatever you want to call it, and good people. And Jerry and Shane came to the gym, you know, 4 or 5 years ago as fighters, trained. You know, they were training with us, and you know, I had actually at the time kind of mentioned to them through the years, like, hey man, do you want to think about coaching, or would you like to run a program? And they were very loyal to the situation they had. and we're just like, nah, we're gonna see how this plays out. Which I always respect that.
Which is it's a great
loyalty
sign.
is a great thing.
Sure.
So I always respected that. And then we kind of had our thing, and they went away for a little bit, and then they ended up coming back to the gym and training again. And then I don't remember how it got brought up. I think Jerry came to me and said, "Hey, man, if the offer's still there, I'd be interested," or because there is no offer from the other thing that we had going on. It's kind of a done deal. We're moving on. I said, absolutely. And again, guys that have never run programs or coached, I've kind of let them know, like, hey, here's how I think I do things. And they've emulated and learned. And those are guys that are learning on a job, but they're just good people. Jerry, great coaches. Yeah. Knowledgeable, friendly, and can, there's more to coaching than just being knowledgeable of like, hey, I know all this stuff. You have to be able to relay it to the people. And that's what I think Jerry and Shane can do. And they're funny, they're friendly, and they're good. And you people know, oh shit, these guys are going out and competing and doing their stuff and seeing it. And they bought into the culture that we had. They bought into the vision, and they were very aligned with, what I wanted, and it just all fell into place. And you can see when something is right and it's the right time and the right place, it exploded, and to a point where, so Jerry is a partner in the gym now. Jerry has made himself, and I try to tell all my guys, make yourself so valuable that I can't afford to lose you.
Boom. Yeah.
I cannot afford to get rid of you. When you're expendable, bro, that's like, you're you're expendable.
Yeah.
It just is what
Next
it is.
one,
Like,
next
yeah,
man
like,
up,
hey,
right.
when I don't have the thought process of somebody, if I'm not like, holy shit, I can't lose this guy, then I'm always looking at, well, who would be better? Wow. If someone can't do the job, and that's what most business and people are always looking for. If you're not killing it at what you're doing, then it's like, well, again, going back to the factor of how we could do things better. I was on the phone with Jerry for an hour last night talking about the program, what our next step is. Exactly like you just said, the program's killing it. Guarantee you we have more students in all facets than anyone in this town. And then probably most gyms, we're nearing the 1,000 mark and students at the gym. Like, we're busting the seams. We're going to have to expand again soon. We've got a lot of big things coming here in the next few months, big announcements coming. But even with that, you can't rest on those laurels and say, hey, we're killing it. Because, we sign up 50 to, I'd say, 80 new members every month. But just like any gym, there's turnover. So I always want to look, people are always coming and going. How do we kill that turnover? What do we do? So like I said, we're on the phone last night with Jerry. Hey, how do we do this? How do we get the beginner program and advanced program of this and that? And we're building and meeting. We met a few weeks ago, and it's just building to the next thing. How do we do this better? We're doing it good. We're doing it really good. They're killing it.
Yeah.
How do we kill it more? And that's always the mentality. The second that you rest in, especially in our sport, in our, realm of, MMA and jiu-jitsu and all these things, once you start to go, okay, we got it. Someone's going to pass you by. Someone's going to do it better. You're going to kind of downgrade yourself. I always look to learn, to look to who's doing what better as a coach, who's doing what better as a gym, as a business, and so that's the mentality. And, with Jerry and Shane, godsend, man, I love those guys. And like I said, that's why they're partners in the business now. Jerry is my partner, and I intend to do business with Jerry for the rest of my life and move on to doing more business and more gyms and more things with him. That's the goal. I have a grand picture in my brain, and I don't exactly, like I said, know how I'm going to get there, but I'll get there.
You've had proof of it.
And it's just about finding good people. Those are good people.
Yeah.
The coaches that I have on my MMA team right now, some of them are shitheads, but I love them. But they're good people. They're people that I trust and genuine. And I've learned my lesson on handing over the reins and giving too much too soon. So, but all these guys, they're all earning it. They're all proving. And it's the same thing, man. I have, like, my thing is I'm good with sharing the wealth. I'm good with, I want all these guys that are helping me and helping this gym and helping this team. I want them all to have great lives. I want them all to eventually own their own gym. If they want to own their gym, my hope is, hey, own a syndicate. Go, let's do it together. Let's do this. Let's build this into something so amazing that it leaves a mark that lasts long past us. You know, that's my goal.
Everything that you're talking about, coach, is it's like, man, it's crazy. It's what I envision, because I'm reading this book called Who Not How. And that's exactly what you're talking about, the culture. And you're pretty much talking about who. It's not it's how you do it, but then it's who. Who are the missing pieces that can fill in the void for whatever I have. And you know what's interesting, before we move on to, coaching Joe, is that with Jerry, ever since I was there from the beginning when he started going. What I noticed objectively as a student, he was kind of playing around a little bit, right? Like a little bit too much in the beginning. And this is just an honest critique. And he was just playing around. But then the more months and years gone by, he's really honed in into his own coaching style.
He's learning on the job. And that's what the thing is too, is when you see somebody who's got all the qualities to do what you think they know, what you think you think they're capable of doing, you have to let them go and explore, and they're going to make some mistakes. And trust me, we've had so many years. Jerry's come to me. We've had so many talks of like, hey, how do you do this? Hey, you do like warm-ups he runs. I'm like, that's very familiar. Like we do the same things. He's learned the same. Yeah. We all learn from somebody who did it better. I see something and you start to take and tweak, and he's done some of the warm-ups that I do, and now he's making some of his own things, and he's fine. We're fine. Like you're fine tuning on the job. That was kind of for me too. And it's harder that way, but in the end it's more rewarding because you do it your way and you figure out what it is the way that you want it. And Jerry's still doing it. He's still young in the coaching realm. And like I said, he's already an amazing coach. Shane are already amazing coaches, and they're going to be just that much better. And I try to do everything I can. And like I said, the last couple of years, I've learned the hard way, very hard way. I had some, some turmoil a few years ago with the team and things by trying to do everything myself, by trying to hold on to everything, because I didn't trust a lot of people, because there's a lot of untrusting shitheads in this sport, in life in general.
Sure.
And so, but I also, that it closed me off to letting the good people in. And so once I was able to say, okay, I can't do this myself. I'm going to fail. It's going to go bad. And there was some downtime. There was a couple months there in personal life and the gym life where I was like, oh man, I got to do things different. This is terrible. I feel bad, but fuck it. Let's go. I'm going to figure it out. And that's where, like I said, I got to the point of starting to read, starting to do stuff, and you figure it out.
Yeah.
And by opening up and letting, the right people in, it just all changed, figuring out that you can't do it all yourself. You can manage. And now I try to sit back, and it's even weirder. I'll tell you the weirdest thing. I was having the other day, I was at home and one of my coaches was out with a fighter, and I'm watching it on TV. And I had just come back from a fight, I think. And I was watching it and went out, and great fight, guy finished the guy. And I was sitting there and I'm watching him on TV. I was like, fuck, I should be there. And I had this internal thing where I was almost panic of why am I not there? Why am I not? And I sat back. I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? This is exactly what you wanted. This is exactly what you've always wanted, is to have a team of people going out and doing what you want to have happen and being successful. And now they're being successful and they're learning, and it's all flowing together. So I had to kind of sit back and check myself, be like, check your ego. And that's the one thing is I'll have a lot of ego, and especially in this sport, is learning to check my ego and be like, dude, this is exactly what you want. Yeah. And just embracing it, So it's been interesting.
What's funny about that too is that, I think that's just part of, it's obviously part of business about how you're relinquishing control to, other people. You've done everything your way and you have a vision in your head. It's hard to just hand it off to someone. Like, say for instance, even in a small scale, like me handing over the editing to someone else. Well, hell, man, they do that for a specialization. They could do it way better than me. It's just, you're a control.
It's not gonna be done my way.
Yeah.
The exact way.
Yeah, you do this, but then you learn over time that, exactly what that is. It's like they specialize in that thing, man. They could probably do it 10 times better than you. Not to say that they could coach better than you, but then maybe just going out there and in
some areas.
Yeah, right.
I have wrestling coaches come in and coach wrestling because they're better wrestlers.
That's their specialty. Yeah,
right. Jiu-jitsu guys coach jiu-jitsu because they're better at jiu-jitsu. There's all these things. There's people that are always better than you, and if you can get them to play along and be part of the system, and come in and say, hey, here's how we do things, and they do it, and they're going to make the team better, then it would be so stupid, or it would be detrimental to me and my team if I don't allow those people, let them get better. There's a lot of times I would have learned to sit back and go, hey man, do your thing, and I've taken myself out of a lot of stuff, and I let the guys, as long as it's going in the right direction. If it starts to come off course, then I'll get in and make sure I redirect before it comes all the way out the tracks.
Yeah.
You just kind of nudge things back in, and I've always seen, but it's crazy when you start, like I said, when you start to see your vision start to happen, even that, where you're like, man, this is exactly what I wanted. Why do I feel weird? Because I wasn't the one, I didn't have hands on, but it's exactly what I wanted, So you have to learn to because if you're always constantly doing this and you're focused on this and holding on so tight, it's hard to get to here, you're just like, I gotta do.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of delegate. Delegation is the one thing that has really changed
Interesting.
the team of delegating, but still overseeing, but delegate.
Yeah, that's a great tip. What's funny is that when you talked about, the kind of like the practice and the warm ups and stuff like that, when I watch you hit pads, coach, you obviously, your posture, the way you hold mitts and stuff like that, when you started having Dom under your wing, I'm like, he looks like fucking John Wood. Like he looks like John Wood holding pads.
It really
he's
does.
Literally, this is you, coach. All right, I'm just gonna. You have this way of doing it, and then backing up, and then someone check hooks, and then he looks like
he
you.
Does.
Like he's straight up, like he, and it's great because
I love it.
He's learning literally what we just talked about. He's
Learning
picking your
job.
brain, literally.
That dude, I spent a few months with him. Hey, come in, follow me, do this, do that, be in. And I would hold for my guys and have him come in and do a couple rounds, then put him out, watch again. And did that for months.
Yeah.
And dude, he's freaking, but the funny thing is Dom worked for me at the gym for a little bit, at the front desk.
That's right. Yep.
And, he had something else, got another job and went away and then came back. And for months I was watching him. I started watching him over on the Muay Thai mat, holding pads, doing stuff for a couple months. I was like, And then I had a talk with him one day and I was like, man, because I remember early on he had told me he wanted to be a coach. I was like, okay. Didn't really take it too much serious.
Yeah.
And then, so when he came back, I started watching him on the mats and I was like, okay, you got a little something there. And one day it just kind of popped into my head. I was like, hey dude, are you serious? Do you want to do this as a coaching? It's okay. Start coming in. Let's go. And he just, from day one, boom, on it. And I don't know if he's taking notes, but he'll when I have him hold for people and I'm in the cage, he'll say shit that I say where I'm like,
that's what I mean.
Verbatim. And it's awesome because that's the goal is every coach is going to be a little different, but we all need to be working kind of under the same system. So it's not too crazy. There's going to be coaches that are better at this or better at that or better at this, but we all kind of we've built a system on how we work and the parameters of, here's the structure of the MMA fight team that I want these things covered no matter what. And then you can go off and kind of do your thing. And each fighter is different individual. So some fighters are going to be good at kicking. They're going to be good at punching. The wrestlers are this. And you play to those strengths. But for the most part, we're all kind of working on the same goal. So it's like, if I'm gone, I have somebody work with Dom. It's fine.
Yeah.
They work with Max. They work with Danny. Whoever. It's all headed in the right direction. And so it just makes it a lot easier when you're all working together.
Yeah, you got him sold into your vision. And the thing is with Dom, it's funny because that's what I'll tend to do too. What he seems like he's doing is that he's looking at you and then reverse engineering it to make it his own.
That's great.
Because he holds pads like you, but then I know he has a different way of thinking, which is great because it's just Dom's style. And then he picked up from you, obviously, by picking your brain and watching you and learning from you, which I think is amazing.
He's gonna be a rad coach, man, in a couple of years. He's already really good. I'm so happy with him. Like I said, he's one of those people that right time, right place, where it's like, there's something there. And when that came along and where he's at and just how motivated he is to actually do it, he's one of those guys that in 5 years, he's going to be a name in the sport, and it's funny because the last 6 months, we've busted his balls and hazed the shit out of him. And, he still takes a lot.
Yeah.
I used to do it a lot more in front of people. And that was kind of one of those things where I was learned, he's earned my respect and earned all of our respect, where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to say these things because I've, like if you do too much things, like with anybody in front of people, like we've kind of backed down on that. Now I'm starting to like, hey man, go do you. Cause you've earned your spot now. And he's one of those guys that I plan to like, do big things with.
Kind of like part of it though, right? It's kind of like hazing. It's kind of like, hey, you're
It's
the
exactly
rookie.
like hazing.
Yeah.
There's things like we've taken him in the back in the janitor room and held him down and done all kinds of crazy stuff to him. And
I was like, I don't know where we're going here.
Just kidding. Yeah. But no, like all the coaches are awesome, man. They're all awesome. And like I said, I'm very happy with where we're going.
Moving on to you coaching. This is going to be like one of those topics where I'm really interested in, because with personal life and business, what we just talked about, I mean, you coach your wife at a very, very high level. She's been in the UFC. She's fought, she's experienced fighter before that, a multi-fighter. How do you do it, man? Like, so you're in her corner. What, obviously without getting too personal, what happens at home? Like, what are the talks at home? Hey babe, we're going to have this big fight. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're living with that person and then that's your life literally. And you're cornering her. I guess with tough losses and wins, how do you even regulate those emotions and how do you even approach coaching your own wife pretty much?
I've been asked that question many times over the years. I've had ever since I was a kid, I've had a very good ability to switch off at the right time in big moments, switch off and focus on whatever I need to focus on. So, when it comes to cornering with anybody, I don't care about the crowd. I don't care about what the situation is, how big, how many people, what pay-per-view it is. I've always been able to switch that off and just focus on what is going on in front of me. And it's been the same thing even outside of my life. There was moments in my life where I was like, something terrible or something crazy happens and I'm like, I should feel panicked or I should be crying or I should be whatever. It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. It's good for what I do because I'm able to focus on whatever. So anytime she fought, and backstory is like, I knew who JoJo was long time, obviously on The Ultimate Fighter. We were actually, she had fought on some shows in a show called Super Fight League in India. And I had some fighters on that and I saw her over there. I thought she was this cute little girl in a, kilt. And, when I saw her on The Ultimate Fighter, I was like, oh man, I love that accent. I always had a little thing for her. I always thought she was cute. And fast forward years later, she was kind of ups and downs with the UFC and she was going to move to Vegas. And, because the PI was pretty new and helping everybody out with their nutrition and all that stuff. So that was bringing her to Vegas. She hit me up. I said, yeah, come on in and, we'll see if you like it. And so we hit it off real well and started training and could kind of tell a few months in where it was just like, might be something there, and it just kind of developed over time. And, we both she'd come over to my house for a couple get-togethers and I watched how she interacted with my son and family. And it was just like, man, this girl is, and I always loved her accent. I always did it for me. So long story short, we ended up, getting married. And
before you move on, Coach, were you a little bit skeptical about that to mix? You hear a lot of people to mix business with pleasure.
It's a crazy thing because we're in a different kind of sport. And I tell my fighters all the time, hey, don't do this. And obviously I can't be a hypocrite too much now. Sure. It's just like, hey, don't do this. Do as I say, not as I do. But, in our sport, it does happen. Like you have women fighters and there's a certain type of woman that's going to, be in there and fighting the cage. And those women are going to be attracted usually to a certain type of man.
Yep.
And you're in a gym where there's tons of testosterone and estrogen and people in shape and good looking people and this and that. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I always just try to tell my guys, listen, I'm not going to tell you not to do this. Just be careful and make sure that one way or the other, the juice is worth the squeeze. If you're going to just have a one night stand, it's going to be fun and you both are all good with it afterwards and there's nothing, fine.
Yeah.
But if you're going to get into a relationship and it gets messy and gets this and gets crazy and all this stuff happens, I've seen happen a million times, then one of you, if not both of you, are probably going to end up out of the gym. You know, and so it's always a slippery slope. But yeah, you know, it happens. Like I said, we're around. It's just like any other workplace. You hear workplace relationships. You're around the same people day in and day out, day, and that becomes your pool of people, your family, your team. This is your squad. Yeah. And you really don't sometimes go out of that. You know, even when you always find your group within the group and you're hanging out with those people. Like most of my fighters are friends with their fighters and they hang out with them outside of the gym. Half of them live together, you know? So it does happen, you know? So the dynamic, of course, I was always worried about that, but I kind of knew right off the bat when we first kind of started hitting off, I was like, this is probably going to be long-term, you know?
Yeah.
And here we are 7 years later, you know, we're still.
I mean, congratulations.
Yeah.
So when it comes to fights, and let's just talk about like hard losses first, because I think that's more impactful than, you know, a win's a win and then you fix what you do. But then the losses, especially honoring your wife.
It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you give me like an in-depth perspective of how do you regulate her emotions at the same time, you know, maybe talking her up? It's like, listen, this isn't the end of the world. That has to be a little bit more intense than one of your fighters that you're close to.
Yeah,
I mean, she's your wife.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously the fact that you have to go home with that person and you've got to see it and it's somebody you care about and love. You know, we've had a couple tough ones where it was just shit. Joe has always been very professional and she's always very driven to, you know, her goals of what she wants to do. And so we've always had a very good system. I don't even know if you want to call it a system of how we work things out, but there's definitely been times, you know, where after a loss, you know, there's been times where I've probably taken it harder than her. You know, I hate losing. I hate to see my fighters lose. I hate it. I hate losing, you know, I hate it for them. Not so much like, oh, we lost. Oh, that sucks. It's just like, it just sucks. There's nothing that makes losing feel better except for going and fighting again and winning. It really is. That's really the only remedy to it. And, you know, it's just how you deal with it. And you try not to let the losses define who you are. But yeah, it's a different dynamic. You know, you just have to kind of work through it together in home. And like I said, we've always been able to do that. And she's always been, we've always had a really good working relationship when it comes to that. Like, you know, we go home, we're not obsessively overly going crazy on fighting even when she was fighting. We wouldn't sit there and watch tape all night or do stuff, you know, like there was times we would shut it off. We were able to shut it off, able to move away from it. And the same thing with the loss, you know, it would be a hard week. It was never a good, you know, hard week. And the upsets and, you know, thankfully she was never really hurt that bad. So I never had to really see her beat up too much. You know, I think that would have been, there was one fight when it sucked. We had the worst experience was COVID happened. We were locked down. We had actually had the Shevchenko fight. You know, we were booked to fight for Shevchenko. It was booked. Shevchenko pulled out twice or 2 or 3 times through injuries or whatever. So we were sitting out for a year and we had it booked. We get a call. I was just coming off COVID, dying from COVID, locked in the house. I remember sick in the bed. Joe's laying next to me. We get a call and it was a matchmaker for UFC. He says, hey, Shevchenko's out again. Knee injury. Definitely. We don't know when it's coming back. We'd already been shelved for a year. I said, okay, well, something comes up, let us know. We'll figure it out. Literally, I think the next day, Maya's opponent fell out. We get a call. Hey, do you want this fight? Short notice fight. 2 weeks. Yeah, let's do it. You know,
how big of a decision-making process was that for you 2 weeks? Yeah.
Big. You know, her manager, Daniel Ruby, was, hey, we should probably wait and take the fight. But it was like, well, we're going to be shelved by the time we fight Shevchenko. we don't want to be sitting around for a year and a half. In hindsight, we should have sat around. Title fight comes in the UFC, you for it, and I would tell anybody that. But long story short, we took the fight against Jennifer Maya. It was a weird warm up. She just felt off. Everything was kind of just cold. She was just down. She was sad. She was hanging on me a little bit more. And I was like, I don't like this. I could just tell something didn't feel right. And she went out, fought, ended up getting arm barred, and then came back to the medical room and collapsed and fell down and passed out.
Just a little bit of that. Yeah.
And like her heart almost stopped. Her heart rate dropped below 30. And so like the medical staff comes and grabs her. They throw her in an ambulance, and I'm freaking out, and I'm in the front. And they put me in the front, and they had to wait for the other medical staff to come from the cage so that they could leave, because there had to be two people there. Like, I'm sitting in the front and they're both in the back, and they're like, we can't. I'm like, let's go to the hospital. They're like, well, we can't leave. We need somebody else back there with her in case her heart stops. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean her heart stops? She just got armbarred. What's wrong with her heart? And so it was just this crazy thing. Come to find out, basically she had come down with COVID. He was just catching it. So she was super sick. We got done with the fight, and she immediately caught it like 2 days after. So she was already coming down and had basically probably fought with it. But it was one of those things. And that was a rough one, on top of losing the fight, losing a title fight. That one sucked. And that was one where we just, even for me, like I felt shitty because I should have, hey, no, we should have waited. Hey, this. And that's something that we both live with, and it's hard to be a ranked fighter in the UFC, but even harder to get a title fight.
Yep.
And to know that you had it and then we didn't take it, we didn't even get it. So that was a rough one, but Joe's a strong-willed person, and she doesn't let those things like take her out of life. She keeps pushing forward. I think it's the Scottish way. They just keep
They're
pushing,
tough motherfuckers.
keep pushing forward and dealing with it, even when like the underneath, the shit's churning and it's got to be killing you. She was really good and is really good at moving forward when something bad's going on.
Yeah. So
it was always easier for us to kind of continue on the path and work things out as we go. It wasn't like a big shutdown. Oh my God, like we're dead. So I commend her for that. She's always been, and that's how she does things at the gym now.
Yeah.
She's carried that over to the gym where there's a lot of stress and crazy shit. And she's starting to realize over the years, I'm telling you, it's something every day. Now she's like, it's literally every hour.
It's every,
it's every hour something's going on. And so, but she pushes through and, and handles it.
Yeah.
So I would say very fortunate compared to some of the other people and some of the other things I've seen that, that go into kind of depression and shut down. There's a lot of bad things that, fighting can cause for people. But Joe's always been good. So it made it really a lot easier for us to deal with as a couple.
Right. Exactly. Man, because last night when I was doing a little bit of research, I did hear about that.
Yeah,
about how she went to the hospital. I was like, that's just nuts. That's what really.
She almost died. It was nuts. I went from a fight getting armbarred to like her heart almost.
Like you said, she got armbarred. It's like, wait, what does that have to do with?
Yeah, I was just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah,
that was a freaky moment.
Yeah, that's very, very hard to fathom. And nothing but kind words from me from Joe. We have a great relationship, joking around all the time. She has that Scottish, witty Craig Jones thing about her, while spinning back hill me and sparring. But, that's another thing. Yeah, one thing that stuck out to me as a person that goes to Syndicate and as a student as well, Coach, is that, you talk about the culture, and I want to keep going back to it because usually when you have some average Joe, kind of like me, go to those gyms, like you said, there's this testosterone filled, cauliflower, ear people. Yeah. And I remember doing some research and then you saying that you don't promote that often, right? You don't do podcasts that often. You don't but then you don't promote the gym as often. How do you is it a word of mouth kind of thing? I know you said you built up the culture. That's a part of it. But how do you even get people like in the door? How do you market yourself? Or was it just over time that people got to hear about it?
Yeah. And when I say I don't like doing these things, I don't mind. I do like doing these things. I just have never been one to kind of put myself out there until this last year, honestly, where the society that we're in is such pushed. It is so pushed by social media, by podcasts, by the the media market. Like, and so you kind of are forced to have to do these things now. I don't hate it. I don't mind. I come here and talk shit all day with you about MMA or gym or career. I love this stuff. I love it, and I don't mind talking. So it's one of those things where I just kind of became a necessary, I don't want to say evil, but I realized like, hey, I have to start doing this to get more promotion for the gym, promotion for the fighters, promotion for everything, you know? It's something that I'm not a jump in the camera, in front of the camera guy. Hey, look at me. Look what I've done for my fighter.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of those guys out there and they know who they are, you know? And so, I've always felt like whenever I do these things, I kind of felt like, oh, it's not really about me. But if it gets to a point, I've always said, if people know my name or know the gym's name or know, you know, or saying, hey, you're doing good at this, it's because I've done my job. I've done my job and making the fighter successful. Our team has done our job and you can't deny it. And so, you know, for me, word of mouth has always been the thing. I'm working with certain managers in the business that I'm, you know, tight with, that they know, hey, I've got this fighter and he'd be good for your gym. They already know. I don't have any of the managers that I work with and I'm close with send me fighters. They already know what kind of gym and culture they're going to get into. Yep. So they don't send me the dickheads. They don't send me the, you know, egotistical, crazy guys. And there's nothing wrong with those guys. It's just, they know that it probably won't work. So when we get somebody, it's usually somebody that already fits in, and building relationships. Like I said, I'm really into building the relationships behind the scenes, you know, cultivating the relationships, the UFC with, you know, the managers, with the people that it really makes, you know, it's important, you know, like you want to be, I always, when I was coming up with, you know, in the coaching sport, making sure that I know guys that used to mop the floors at the UFC are pushing mops that are now executives. You know, I used to shake hands with those guys, treat them the same way, and now they're big dogs. And I try to tell my guys the same way. Hey, treat those guys with respect because you never know who's going to be your boss someday or at the top. But just again, the culture, word of mouth, and now promoting. Like, luckily, our gym is a block from the PI. Yeah, you know, so we get a lot of flow over from that. You know, Vegas is the epicenter of fighting right now. And so, in the location where we're at is amazing. You know, we have 100,000 cars drive by every day. So we don't really have to do much marketing. And the gym now speaks for itself, and having champions and having people like Marab and having all the success, the Khalil Roundtree, you know, all the great fighters that we have there all the time. And that kind of sells itself, you know, and then so guys come in. And like I said, Vegas is a crazy place. It's very, you know, nomadic, and it's just everybody's flowing everywhere. And so when they come to us and they're like, oh, I can get everything here and you guys will take care of it for me. You know, so getting fighters, I don't go out. I don't do the chicken hawk thing where I can see if hey, you know, come over here and I'll hold some pads for you. Come over here and I'll do it for free. Or hey, I got a free class at the PI. Come in and do this and do, you know, and there's a lot of that. And that's fine. If you want to run, however you want to build your thing, build your thing. But I probably didn't do it the smartest way, but I did it the hard way. And I'm proud of, you know, where we're at. And I can stand on saying, hey, I don't try to steal people's fighters. I don't try to go behind. If someone wants to be at our gym, it's because they want to be there, or, you know, their manager or somebody told them, hey, go try it out there.
Yeah. What that speaks to me is that you didn't take any shortcuts and you had a lot of integrity of doing, you know, like business. Before we move on, Coach, we've talked a lot about business, but personally from me to you, starting this podcast thing, and then I have other ventures, can you give me 2, maybe 3 things? I know you talked about the never say die attitude. That's definitely something that even persistence is a big one. Can you give me maybe 2 other tips just for me, or maybe anyone that's starting a business, to be able to get through all the whirlwinds and all the hardships? Because that is one of the toughest things I think in life, is just like, you want to it's like you don't see a certain future and how you're going to make money off of it. You got to live somehow. How do you get through those whirlwinds, man? How do you get through those storms?
A couple things, you know, always have a big picture of what it is you see, and that picture can change. That picture can shift. That picture can be what you think it is now. It might be different in a year because something happens, good, bad, and different, and shifts that picture. have a big picture, but do not ever let the big picture become too big, too overwhelming. You know, like I have grandiose ideas and things that I want in my life. But I don't let it drive me crazy. I don't let it, like I said, stick me in a point, well, how am I going to get this and freeze myself so I don't end up doing it?
You're right.
You know, I have a goal. Like hell, I have an idea in my head someday I'm going to have a house with a bowling alley in it. I don't know if I'm actually going to have that, but you know, I think that if I put it out there long enough and I'm, you know, some shit, who knows? It's just something stupid. That's not something I need, but have the idea of what you want and make sure that you're doing something every day to achieve that closer, but also don't let it overwhelm you. And with my fighters, sometimes I have like, if you want to be world champion, okay, well, there's a lot that goes in that. That's the big picture.
Yep.
But you also, sometimes we have to shrink that big picture down and focus on the one thing that one path that opens the door to the next door to get to the big picture.
Right.
Don't make the big picture too big. Don't let it overwhelm you, but start moving towards, you know, what you want to achieve.
Because you psych yourself
Yeah.
out.
Like you've got to, and be honest with yourself. A lot of people like me saying, I want a bowling alley. Well, I don't know that I'll ever actually have a bowling alley in my house, but it'd be cool. And one day I might go, oh, shit, this is, you know, I thought this was going to, yeah. And so I put those things out there, but it's also not, I'm never going to be depressed if I don't get a bowling alley. I'm fine. Like I said, if I don't move forward anywhere where I'm at in life right now, I've made it. I'm good.
Right.
I'm good. I love it. But if I have bigger ideas and bigger things that I think I will, I know I will. You know, and just be honest of what it is you really want. Don't, as people, we have a great tendency to be able to bullshit ourselves and lie to ourselves. Be honest of what you want. If you want to be famous, then do what it takes to be famous. If you want to be rich, do what it takes to be rich. If you want to be Instagram popular, or you want to do it to get chicks, you want to do it, whatever. Just be honest with yourself and use that thing to motivate. So many people were like, you get, oh, well, you know, I'm doing this for my family and for this. And it's like, stop. Just you want to be something, you know, that you're lying to yourself or you're trying to sound whatever. Just be honest with what you want, and that'll help you get there a lot quicker, because a lot of people get their wires crossed and confused. Sure. Tell my fighters all the time, hey, and I always go back to this because it's a simple way. If you want to make money, great. If you want to get chicks or dudes, great. If you want to have millions of followers on Instagram, great. Well, guess what? All that takes is, if you're a fighter, you need to win fights. You want to get chicks? Great. Chicks like winners. You want to make money? You got to win fights. Sure. That's how you make money. You want to get popular on Instagram? Win fights. That's people are going to want to watch you and they're going to follow you. Whatever it is, and then do whatever you have to do to make, guess what? What do I do? What do I have to do to win fights? And that's where you start. And that's, you know, and just like I said, point yourself in the right direction. Be honest.
Thank you for that advice, Coach, because I needed, you know, I watch a lot of the coaching and stuff like that, but hearing it from someone in real life that's actually here. I mean, thank you for your time, by the way. I still can't believe you're here. This is great advice. Before we end it, Coach, I know I want to be respectful of your time. I know you got, you know,
you're good.
Things to do, but the one thing I want to ask you is that I watched the Vince Morales fight, right, with Raul Rosas. And the thing is, what's been sticking out to me is that I know that we're here for like the wins as a coach, but then how much stock do you put now in, since UFC is an entertainment like any other sport? I mean, if you're going to have those dog fights and those hard fights that like that Vince Morales fight, dude, like, what the hell? Like, obviously, I mean, by my opinion, I mean, I thought that, you know, he came out, but with the win, but how much stock, even though he lost, I mean, we're in a sport where it's like the Michael Chandler, you put on a good fight and it's just, it sells tickets, and then all of a sudden your stock goes up without winning.
Sure.
What do you think about that, Coach? Are you still about the winning, or is it about like, how much do you, not necessarily push your fighters to have a good fight, because it's all about the wins, like I said, but what do you think about that whole thing where it's like, oh, you have an exciting fight, your stock goes up, and then you get more fights?
Listen,
and all that?
This shit is such a cutthroat business. I've seen guys get cut from the UFC on 3-4 fight win streaks. I've seen guys that have lost 7 fights in a row and keep getting, fights because of the way they fight, or because they'll take a short notice fight, or because they'll step up. The crazy thing about it is there is no finite way to know what category you're falling into, what you're going to get. Like, what you give the UFC isn't always what you're going to get back. You take a short notice fight, you do them a favor. That doesn't mean that they're going to do you a favor. This business is cutthroat. So ultimately, first and foremost, as a coach, we want to win. And secondly, we want to win in an exciting fashion.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like, this business is one of the toughest, if not the toughest business to be in, because it's you locked in a cage with another person who wants to beat the shit out of you, and vice versa. You locked in a cage with a person who's literally trained to stop you from doing everything you want to do. And it's crazy. And one punch can change a whole game plan. You can, throw out the window. Like, Vince is a great example. Vince is one of my favorite people. He's our team captain. I love him to death. He's one of a perfect example of a guy that does everything right. And I say this to my team all the time. You can do everything right, and you can love MMA. You can cuddle it, you can kiss it, you can treat it good, you can take it to dinner, you can go on vacation with it, and it doesn't give a shit. It will hate you. It will kick you in the dick as quick as it can. It will make you feel terrible when you've given your all to it. And, Vince is a perfect example. He's done everything right. And honestly, I think his last 2 fights, from me and from criteria, I think he won those fights. And this is something that's really made me, even going into the Raul Rosa fight, preaching to him optics. Optically, it's not about we think we won the fight. It's not about how close we got to winning the fight. It's not only, at this level, it's very hard to finish fights, but we have to convince those 3 people that are sitting next to the cage that we won the fight. And guess what? A lot of times, those 3 people don't know what the hell they're looking at. They ain't never put an armbar on. They ain't never put a Darce choke on. They don't even know what fucking Darce choke is.
Topic, yeah.
And so, it drives me crazy that the criteria shifts. There is a criteria in judging in MMA that is for everybody, universal. But who is actually the one implementing that criteria is who I have a problem with. And it's gone through judging is like, you got people who have never been inside of a gym or been on a mat.
Yeah.
I always use the example of this is like, I love dogs. I have 2 little beautiful pugs at home, and I love them to death. And thank God, I think this year, the biggest dog show in the world, a pug won it. So that's awesome.
There you go.
So I would have been right this year. But I've had dogs my whole life. I pet them. They're furry. They're cute. They're this, they're that. But that doesn't fucking mean that I'm capable of going, you shouldn't put me in to the Westminster dog show and put me as a judge, because I'm going to be like, I want the pug.
Exactly.
I like the pug. The pug he's the one winning it. Again, I would have won this year because he was the best dog. But I have no idea how to judge a dog show. I've seen dogs my whole life. I've been around them my whole life. That doesn't mean shit. And so it's kind of the same thing for a lot of the judges there. They've been around the sport. They've been around or seen or this, but they don't know what they're doing or talking, don't train. Come on.
Yeah.
And so optics. So going back to that is you have to not only win the fight, but you have to show people that you won the fight. Vince was closer to finishing the fight in the last 2 fights than either one of those guys. He had those guys in trouble. Almost finished multiple times. But optics. The first one, I think the one he lost before this, he got busted in the nose, had blood coming down his nose, and optics looks like, okay, shit, we're losing the fight. He was going for chokes. He was on the bottom. People don't know. If you're on the bottom a lot of times in MMA, you're losing, even if you're almost choking somebody unconscious.
Yeah.
So it really sucks. So the bottom line of the question, you got to win. No matter what, we're in a sport to win. There is no sport where you're in to lose.
Yeah.
There is no sport where you should be, oh man, I'm happy with my performance. Fuck, you shouldn't be doing it then. You're going out there to win a fight, and you want to hopefully win the fight in emphatic fashion where people are going, oh my God.
Right.
That doesn't always happen. So we're training at the highest level with the highest and the best people. So you got to win however you win. And you got to let the chips fall how they may, and you hope for the best. And sometimes it is respected that you had a great fight and you went out there and fought your ass off and it was close. Sometimes it's not. You just do not know in this sport. You don't know what's happening next.
Yeah.
So the only way you can kind of dictate, the best way you can dictate is go out and win.
Yeah.
Go out and win, be personable, make people like you, make people want to watch you. be friendly to the people, be friends, have the right managers, put yourself in the right position. So win or lose, that you're still in a pretty good position. And that's it, man. But like winning trumps everything. Yeah, it really does. Does winning need to define your life because somebody loses a fight? Are you terrible? No, but we're in a job. If I am let's say I'm a used car salesman and I don't sell no cars, my boss is probably going to shit can me. Right. Doesn't matter what you're at. If you're not successful at what you're doing, you're probably not going to have a job long. It doesn't matter. And I could be the best salesman. Maybe I'm the best salesman at that used car sales lot, but there's another guy who's got dirty tactics and he's doing this and he's doing that and he's selling cars right and left, undercutting me, doing whatever he's doing. That guy's probably going to keep his job and get promoted.
Right. Like he's kind of doing what he has to do, I guess.
Right? Yeah. And so you see that all the time. You just don't know in the sport. I wish, and it gets crazier and crazier every year. And it's unfortunate, like the fighters don't have any there is no union. There is no support system. It is the UFC. I love them, but I wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for them. So I never shit on the bosses and whatever, because they do it better than anybody in the world. But it is a little disappointing that there is no way for a fighter to say, hey, I don't like this. And hey, can we change this? Or hey, we could do this better for us. There is none of that.
Yeah, I guess you have to play to the system, right?
You have to.
Because they are the system.
You have to. They are the house. They make the rules. They own the games. It is what it is.
Yeah, you play to their beats. Thank you for everything, Coach. My last question, this is general, but with all the business lessons that you've learned, life lessons, marriage, whatever, what's the one advice, again, general, but what's the one advice in life that you would give to someone that's trying to strive like you have, all those years? Is it consistency, persistence?
Oh man, I mean, persistence for sure. Going back to it, I will never, sway away from the never say die attitude. You have to have a successful anything, marriage, successful business, whatever it is, podcast, fighting. Never say die, never settle, always strive to be better. No matter if you're on top of the world, if you're the best in the business, you should be looking to get better. I'm so blessed and fortunate in what I've been given, what I've earned in the gym, but there's never a day that I will settle and say, you know what, I've worked with 2 champions now. I have Whaley, that I 3 or 4 camps with her, Marab, the last 5-6 years now with him, Roundtree, who almost there, and I think we will get there.
Yep.
But those freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. But what's better than 2 champions, 3 champions?
Right.
Better than that, 4 champions. And again, it's a fine line of, I'm content. I'm very happy with what I have, but I always strive to be better, not just for me, but for my family, for my team. And once you stop, you have to always stop. You always have to be learning and growing. The person, whatever your base and your field is, how do you become a better podcaster? How do you become funnier? How do you coach better? There's always somebody who can do it better. Figure out how they're doing it and try to replicate and then do it better than them and then do it better and figure your own thing out, but never stop growing and learning. Never be content with, I think I've made it. I'm good. I've plateaued, because that's when you get passed by, just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Even with the podcasting, Coach, like every subtle nuances, like my speech and how much I say, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's like, wait, what? And then, just the way I speak, my demeanor.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You notice these things when you're in that field now. It's like, I watch a lot of world-class podcasters.
Yeah.
And they take speech therapy
flow,
classes.
everything.
Yeah. Delivery.
We do something we changed over the last few years is our sparring rounds, how we do our sparring when someone has a camp. We schedule out their sparring times so that they have the cage times, so that we're cornering the guys in the cage. We're taking the stool in, sitting them down, talking to them between corners. Dude, I feel like I have 72 fights a week that I'm cornering. I mean, I literally, there's things that I talk and I say, I'll hear myself say something. I'm like, holy shit, did I just really say that? That's crazy. Right. It just flows out, and the more you practice and the more you do those things, should always be looking to do better. I mean, like this last weekend, I officiated a wedding.
Right.
You know, I
I
was a pastor. I married somebody.
Yeah.
And I only did that just because it's something I haven't done, and I wanted to see, can I do it? Can I do it? I'm going to get up in front of a crowd of people that I don't know. Some people I do know, and I'm going to read, a script that I wrote and this and that. And I'm going to, you always want to test yourself. And that was a perfect example. I was like, okay, cool, man. I did it. You always, if people come to me, hey, do you want to do it? Absolutely. Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then sometimes I'm like, oh shit, do I want to do that?
Yeah.
This is always pushing yourself.
You just seem like a deep dive. It's almost like genetically instilled with you, because one thing I wanted to ask, and I joked about this with Coach Danny and a few coaches, is that did you have any, fighting is a weird nut job kind of thing. And I know everyone's nice at the gym and everyone's kind. Did you have any trauma growing up to get you into the fight? Like, it's a question that's like,
come on.
I know you're a nice guy.
I mean, I'm going to go on record. There are a few people, because fighting is so popular and so big, that there's well-adjusted people that now fight. Like, you're a college degreed person who could have gotten what are you doing? Because fighting's cool. But it takes a certain not so well-adjusted person. And I think we've all, like, I grew up in a crazy way, like my family was, as I've actually explored more of learning about myself as a coach and things, and I've gone into that side of, I go to a counselor. I have a counselor, a psych that I go to and talk about things. Cause a lot of times at this level, other than my wife, there's not a lot of people, like, who do I go to vent, and I don't like to worry about other people's shit. So there's all kinds of things that I've figured out in the last few years of, like, things that as a child that have shaped me to be this way, or things that happened, or, business, or watching my dad or my mom or this or that, there's definitely things that for sure I wasn't beaten or abused or anything like that. But, definitely had an anger and, violent side to me as I was a kid. And thank God I pointed it in the right direction, and, here we are.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I appreciate you, man. This has been a masterclass, not only to the audience, but for me. I mean, this is like really why I got you here. It's my hidden kind of, getting you here, and I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to, especially when it comes to business. I know you're the world-class coach, but your business acumen and just the way you do things is what really sticks out to me. And I just want to thank you for your time.
I appreciate it.
And I appreciate you, Coach.
Anytime. Thank you.
Awesome.